Hello, hello, hello. Another day, another stream, and another opportunity for me to check my audio balancing live. Because, you know, you gotta do it. You gotta do it. Oh, wait. Just gotta make sure everything sounds good. Make sure everything sounds pleasant, passable for the squadron. You know, make sure the vibes are all there. Make sure we can hear everything that needs to be heard. I think we can all agree we want to make sure. Cool. That should be fine. That should be fine. And we are going to get started and finally get around to the did I just leave a bunch of clothes on this thing? Ignore this. Ignore you just saw here. You didn't see a singular thing. Not at all. Everything's fine, and this is completely professional operation we've got going on here. But today we are going to go ahead and start our review of this here book that I have been working on trying to read for a hot minute. I've wanted to read this for a very long time. Like, I loved book 1 of this series, and I had pre-ordered this book as soon as it came out. I pre-ordered this book and book 3 as soon as they were announced, and I've only just now gotten to finishing. I finished this book in Black History Month. This book has been like part of my screensaver on my goddamn phone or on my tablet since the book cover was announced, and I only just got the embarrassment is real. The embarrassment is real here. But before we get into starting talk about the book, let's talk about all of the plugs that I have in the description down below, because YouTube. First and foremost, I also write books. I need to make a new one of these that includes my most recent publication, Help You When We Jump. My most recent publication. It is a short story. That, as well as these books, as well as more books, are available in the link down below. And that link is going to be for the Crips for eSims for Gaza bundle. There is currently a fundraiser by Crips for eSims for Gaza on Itchio.com. Link is down below. $16, and you get it says 120 plus developers, 237 different works, different projects. Those are video games, those are zines, those are artworks. Those are 4 of my own books. It are all available for $16 or more. You can always donate more in this bundle. The sale of the Crips for eSims for Gaza bundle on Itchio is going through May 20th, and my plan is that I'm going to do this review today, and then leading up to May 20th, I'm going to try and do as many streams as I physically can, which I disabled limited energy capacities. Let's not hope for too much here, but I would like to do some streams to mess around with this stuff. My husband is doing streams to play the video games. I might pick up a couple of them, but I really want to talk about some of the zines and the reading materials that are in there. I want to look at some of the art. Maybe there's a coloring book, so I want to color something on stream. I also do have just a piece that I am drawing that's related to Gaza, so I might want to paint that on stream just to keep this up and live on screen somewhere for a couple extra hours in the day while they are raising this fundraiser. But that is one of the links down below. Go ahead and check that out. Again, $16 to get over 200 different pieces of media to interact with. Links also down below are going to be for a spreadsheet of different GoFundMes for people in crisis zones, such as Haiti, Sudan. They have, I believe, a link to the Olive Branch Project, which is Palestine. And then you also have links down below to non-Zionist graphic design organizations. Canva is a Zionist org. And so I am officially divested from Canva, but you know, doesn't hurt to keep shitting on them at the beginning of every stream. Doesn't hurt. So we have links down to Snappa, which is essentially the exact same thing. I prefer Inkscape because the process of getting all of my files out of Canva was a fucking nightmare. It was a pain in the ass. So I would prefer a graphic design program that can work with just the files on my computer, so that way I know everything is mine. It is mine. And then it also has a link down to Sozi, which is the program that I use for my multi-book streams, like my quarterlies, my 5-star book draft stuff, like the stuff where you kind of zoom around like a Prezi. That is the program that I use to do that with an SVG file. Those are the links down below. But without further ado, let's get into the stream. And this is a spoiler-filled stream. I think for the most part, a lot of my streams tend to have spoilers. I don't go out of my way to make sure there's spoilers. It's more just like, if this is something we gotta talk about, we're gonna have to talk about it. If it's a surprise that we don't need to talk about in order to like get across the plot or talk about like the concepts and themes and stuff that I want to talk about, then we don't need to talk about it. But there's plenty of stuff that we need to talk about here. So this is a spoiler stream. So if you, like me, have been fallen behind on the TBR, on the new releases, fair warning. And then this is just my little notes. These are my little notes with my little doodles. I've been trying to get better at doodling and getting more practice with doodling, and that is a big part of my the stuff in my reading journal. A lot of doodling, and like, they're not good, but you know, they're not, maybe they'll get better eventually as I continue to practice doodling. But look at all, I have a lot of notes. I have a lot of notes for this book. Let us begin. And then these used to be up in for a very short duration of time. I had a little online bookshop, and these were some graphics I made for it, and we're just gonna repurpose them here because they're super fucking cute. Getting into it. Okay, we start out the book with Anor and Shyla, who have been separated by the circumstances that we are in. Anor is, let me see if I can move this so my tablet with, because I keep my tablet, can I help you? I keep my tablet with my notes separate from my notes that I have. Like, it's the exact same set of notes, but like, so I can scroll without making y'all dizzy. I read them off my tablet. So we open with Anor and Shyla, who have been separated by the circumstances that we are in. Anor is her mother's acting disciple. Again, in this universe, they have like the wardens, who are the political leaders of the nation, and they have their disciples who are next in line. Nor is her mother's acting disciple, and Shyla is off at the ghosting refuge. I'm not gonna do a ton in terms of any form of plot summarizing. So if you want a plot summary, you might want to either check out my review of the first book from Lord knows how many years ago, or you can check out another review. Look at that, but I'm not gonna do too much. We're jumping into this as if you know what happened in the first book, okay? You know what's going on in the first book. If you have no idea what the series is about, I can't help you right now. I'm so sorry. But yeah, Anor, disciple, Shyla, ghosting refuge. And for me, the book immediately just felt really off because we end the last book, right, with Shyla and Anor separated and not on great terms. Anor essentially just damn near hated Shyla, and now we come to the book and she's just in this like sappy, helplessly in love. Oh, I look at the moon and all I can think of is Shyla. And I feel like we didn't get a transition there. And I would have liked a transition from that like strong feelings of hate, feelings of not fully hate. I wouldn't say she got to the point of really hating Shyla, but like those feelings of betrayal. Like that's a very strong feeling to just kind of skip past. And then Shyla is talking about in an Anor in the scene, the opening scenes, she's talking about Anor in a way that makes her seem like she's drunk. And this is not how she ever behaves on the Hoba which is the drug of the world. This is not how she has ever talked or behaved on that. So I don't think that's a reasonable thing to blame it on. But yeah, it felt like we skipped some like important character development in terms of like how particularly Anor got from the feelings she had when we left her to the feelings that she is now displaying at the beginning of this book. This they are split up, so we have different storylines going on. The ghostings take Shyla and John, who was one of the other of the like hyper trained seven. Were they the seven? Stolen. But who's a jackass, so he was a prisoner. Shyla and John go with the ghostings to the mainland in hopes to find someone that can explain to them and help them with the increasing brutality of the Tidewind, because the Tidewind, very vicious winds that blow up the sand, not blow up the sand, but whoosh, blow up the sand to such a vicious degree that it will literally rip the skin off of your bones, and it's getting more aggressive and more harsh, and it's lasting longer, and it's going to destroy their entire land. It's going to kill everyone. So they're going to the mainland to try and find someone to help them with this. They cross the sea and face the Tannin, which is this monstrous creature of legend that they've always heard of as being a monster created by the god on anime. Sure. That demands sacrifice in order for you to have safe passage. And they reach it, and it's made of stone, and it's made of glass, and it's covered in the runes of their world that they use for all of their magic and whatnot. And it does demand that sacrifice in order for them to pass. And so they had prisoners on board the ship and threw them into the sea to get that safe passage. And then they get to the safe passage, and in an attempt to scout ahead, Shyla and John get kidnapped by slave traders. And to our surprise, Shyla throws a temper tantrum. She's being very difficult because, fair. And it demands that they let her go. And they do. To our surprise, they go for it. The reason why is because the outer coast of the island that they're on has really bad acid rain issues. And so she's free to go. She's just not going to survive if she leaves. So she has to turn back. She has to go back to them. But when she does, she barely survives. She's at death's door while she is with them. John and one of the other prisoners escape with her, and she's in terrible shape. She's not conscious. She's, again, at death's door. They escape with her, and they do their best to travel to the university of the land, which is kind of like one of the major centers of the land, and hope to get help, and also answers and all of the things. This probably chunk of the book is probably the area I had the biggest issues with, I would say. It's not written as well as the rest of the book, as well as the other chunks of the books. This specifically the section in which Shyla is unconscious and we are learning a shit ton of exposition about this world. I don't think it's written as well as the rest of the book or as well as the first book. And you know, what's what sticks out to me the most, right, is it's not a new issue. It's not a new like kind of concept. Like a new writing issue would be, I think, the way the book kind of goes about trying to remind you of what has happened previously in the other book and trying to like refresh you on that stuff. I thought that felt a lot pretty awkward. But like frankly, that kind of thing is one of the like seems to be one of the most difficult things in writing. So like whatever. The reason this sticks out to me is because exposition happened in the other book, right? And one of my favorite things about the way it was handled in the first book was that a lot of the times when we needed a lot of exposition, we stepped back from the main narrative and we told the story in its own, like a chapter that is just another narrative, or a chapter that is poetry designed to be this. And there have been several books that I've read that I really liked having this form of approach to like mid-book exposition kind of thing, or like exposition in general, frankly. And it allowed you to use your core narrative skills to tell this history, as opposed to limiting how you could write it, how you could describe it, and how you could explain it to what would feel natural in conversation and what would remain readable to someone looking at it. And here, when we do have this situation in this book, it is just a person expositing in kind of a long spiel. And in order, I feel like it doesn't feel particularly natural the way that it's written, and to accommodate for the sake of the actual physical readability of the scene, so you don't have like 3 pages of one paragraph because it's all someone's dialogue. The author breaks up these lectures with just useless action sentences, like their eyes widened, he shook his head, the cat murped, and it just felt so awkward and unnecessary to have those. And it just, in overall, this section of the book was just really not particularly enjoyable for me to read. I was definitely getting to a point where I was just skimming through it. I was like not excited when I got to another point with these characters. When I got to another chunk with John's point of view, I was not excited. And it gets better once we move past this immense degree, because they're explaining a whole ass world. Once we get past this just massive chunk of just exposition dump, the narrative gets better. But I just really was not enjoying that part of the story. But again, we have multiple POVs, and we are also flipping from their like chunk to Anor's side of the story, in which Anor's mother has been murdered, and Anor is being framed for said murder. So she needs to find out. Oh, wait. What? So she needs to find out who actually did it. The vibes of this chunk of the story were just immaculate, except for Hassa. Hassa's writing in this was just so, oh my, it felt, let me just explain. So throughout this point in which Honora is trying to figure out who is framing her for her mother's murder, a big issue with it is that it's and maybe I just am not remembering correctly, but it seems as if her weapon of choice, her fighting weapon, her, like, that she uses it was made to look like it was the murder weapon. And simply put, not a lot of people like, that weapon was in her room, and not a lot of people have access to her room. And so her immediate first thought was, who has access to my room? Who could have gotten into my room? And let me figure that part out. Let me start there, because they had to have gotten access into my room. And at every step, which, like, obviously that means that she's looking at the people closest to her, but at every step, Hassa is acting like that's, like, it's so absurd. How could you ever think it would be someone close to you? That's just cruelty. Like, she's thinking it is the most overdramatic concept to think that is someone close to Anor, which doesn't, it's just, it feels like it does not recognize the reality of the situation the author wrote for this murder and for the framing of the murder. So you also have one of the people in Anor's personal staff is present immediately when the murder happens, and is helping them to, like, secure the murder scene and whatnot. And Anor leaves, and it is said that that person told them Anor was behaving not in a way that you would expect someone whose mom was just killed was acting. Anor was just in here and they were arguing. She's been really upset with Anor, and Anor found that really fucking suspicious. And again, Haas is acting as if it's absolutely absurd to ever consider someone near her, ever consider thinking that someone close to you would cause you harm. That's just the most ridiculous thought you could ever possibly have. And then we also get to a point, like, there's a lot of back and forth with this issue, and then we also get to a point in which essentially the, like, person who raised Anor like a mother becomes a primary suspect, and there's just a shit ton of evidence against her, that, like, there's a massive amount. She's checking out books about murder and about covering up a murder. She is going off and paying money to someone with very suspicious notices, including, like, something about how do we cover up, like, the slit to the throat, or how do we clean up a slit to the throat, or something like that, which is how Anor's mother died. And the person that committed the murder worked to actively help frame that woman. And Haas is like, how dare you think this evidence points to her being the killer? She points to her, obviously she's using a pseudonym to write murder mystery books for you. Duh. And it's like, it's okay if that's the fucking answer, but you can't be condescending about that. You cannot act like that should have been the clearest fucking idea in the world. The point of it was for Anor to not know she was the one writing those books. So how the fuck do you think, like, that's it? It's like, it was so off base the way that this narrative was trying to push the idea that there was something wrong with Anor for taking all of these mountains of very reasonable, very reliable evidence that she was actively thinking through, actively looking through, and actively investigating. Like, she was being intentional with the information she was receiving, taking in, and how she was perceiving it. And simply the fact that these were with regards to people close to her, Hassa was acting like that was the most, like, drastic leap in logic you could possibly make. And fun fact, it ends up being someone fucking close to her that did it. Oh my fucking god. And it just all, like, leads to this feeling that Hassa is naive, and it leads to me feeling like Hassa is, like, bound to be betrayed by something fucking obvious, because that's, and I know that's not who this character is, but that is, like, this is just such a incorrect and, like, incorrect within the world of the fucking book hill for her to be dying on. it's just so I didn't like it. I did not like that at all. Side note about Hassa. I just have one major complaint because Hassa has a romance in the book, and they end up having sex at some point, and I'm really irritated about when they did it because I just feel like there was a moment set up where like it was right fucking on a platter, and they skipped that moment to like a point where they're talking to each other about how it's the night before Anor's trial for murder, and they're talking about how they didn't want to bring up all these super fucking important things because everyone's so stressed out about the trial, and then they just have sex, and it's like, come on, like continuity with the rest of the fucking scene, please. Like they're not bringing up the fact that people are dying and going missing. It seems like they're being murdered because the trial's too important, but they're gonna have sex right now. They're not bringing up the fact that his dad is dying and he didn't want to bother anyone because of the fucking trial, but they're gonna have sex right now. Like we could like that didn't feel like it made sense, and it didn't feel like it led, like the actual scene we were in led to that. But there was a scene before it where Anor, like, because the ghostings in this world are they have had their tongues cut off and they've had their hands amputated, so they have a special sign language in order to communicate with each other, and Hassa is teaching this boy that language in order to communicate with him, and they're having tutoring sessions. And at some point Anor is suspicious of Hassa and uses his scheduled like time for learning the sign language, his scheduled tutoring, uses that time to be in the room and kind of trap Hassa in the room when she knows where Hassa's gonna be, and be like, did you do this? These are some suspicious things. Why did you do this, that, and that, the other? And they're getting mad at each other. Anor leaves, and Hassa's left with his boy, and he's begging her not to be upset with him. He's so sorry. He didn't know what else to do. And Hassa's like, why would I be mad at you? Why would I be mad at you? And he's like, and she's like, why would I be mad at you? And why would you even care if I was mad at you? And like, that would have been such a great fucking point for like a confession of love and whatnot. But, and then like passion and shit. But no, we just go, like, we just skip over that moment and then just kind of duct tape that scene somewhere else where it just did not feel like it fit for me at all. But whatever. Moving on, we've got this other POV. We actually start getting another major POV of this character named Nayeli, who is off on the set of islands with all of these tribes. They have one tribe for each different blood color, which is 8. There are 8 different colors. Don't ask me what all of them are, because once they got to the point where indigo and blue were different, you lost me. I'm confused. It could be just Roy G. I don't think there's an orange. Never mind. Forget I don't know. Okay. On this island, they aim to sacrifice to the god and are in search of the Child of Fire, who is destined to bring about a whole new era of the world and life and whatnot. And that's kind of all you need to really know, but just know that there's these islands, but you need to know in terms of what actually goes on in Nayeli's POV. Because when we get back to the mainland with Shyla wakes up and we all talk about the actual history of this world. And oh no, oh god. Oh, well, I lost that. Cool, dope, exciting. So the ancestors of the people of the Isles, as well as the blue and red bloods of the world that our girls live in ahora, are all descendants of this fanatic cult that believes that their god was a god of sacrifice and that the fire will cleanse the world of those that are less righteous. Something to that effect. It's something to that effect, though. Like, I would believe it if I was off. Um, they were led by a university, because the university is split up into different essentially like focuses of the ways in which they can use the rune magic. And this cult was led by the professor, or the leader of the discipline that focused on animation and bringing to life things that were inanimate objects, a task which both takes part of the caster's soul and part of the essence of the being an object that you are bringing to life. They found this leader to be a fanatic. They found the sacrifices of people that they were doing to be inhumane, and so they banished the leader. And once this person was banished, the students of his that had been in the discipline but hadn't been in the cult were very angry, felt very betrayed, and in their anger, they created a monster that they built of the ruins of the cult's like church. That's not the word, but that's the vibe. That's the idea. And they brought to life that monster, creating the Tannin, a creature of death and sacrifice, because that is the essence of the building, of their church, of their belief systems, of the people who had made that stone and made that glass, had the belief of a god of sacrifice, of sacrificing to receive good in life. And when I tell you that reveal had me actually just fucking screaming, like to the point of just like the first, like I was like, like, you remember the whole thing about like the exposition and not liking that earlier? No, because that was that's just a fucking awesome idea. That's fucking awesome writing, and this book is a 10 out of 10. Like I was so tempted to just start book 3 right away, but I did not want to accidentally burn myself out. But oh my god, did I love that fucking reveal. It was so good. It was so good. And at the end of it, everyone is preparing to battle everyone else. That is essentially the end of it, is everyone's prepping to fight each other, primarily because we find out that the rune magic it drains a little life force from the world around it. And that is what's causing, because the climate disasters around all of the areas, because you both have in the land that our people come from, or our people are living in, they've got the tide wind issues, but you also have on the mainland, they have this acid rain issue, and then closer inland they have just massive floods. And that is, there's a bit that reminds me of like, you have massive floods, and the islands have volcano issues. And so we've got climate disaster because of how the descendants of these fanatics are continuing to use this magic in excess, and are just overly draining the life force of nature itself. And in order to save everyone, you have to stop them, but those people are like using the magic in excess to cleanse the world of the people who don't think like them. And so there's just going to be a lot of fighting. We are also looking to find the Child of Fire, who I have 2 theories. Okay, the book's theory is that Anor is the Child of Fire. My theory is that either Hassa is the Child of Fire, or Hassa, Shyla, and Anor are all 3 the Child of Fire, and that there's 3 children instead of just 1. Just throwing that out there. Last thing I would say is I was so fucking confused about the timeline, and like not in the way the book intended me to be confused, because the first thing you learn about Nayeli is that she has a brother named Anasi, who we learn that Lute, the warden of crime, who was like, he's a major player in the first book. You find out he is yellow-blooded And his name, he goes by the name Inasi. And so I think the book was trying to make you think that he was Nayeli's brother. But when we're in these other scenes with uh John and the dude expositing all over the place, they're talking about this queen taking over some group of people and conquering a group of people. And because of that, I thought that Nayeli was like way the fuck in the past, and that either the Anasi thing was a coincidence or that he was like her grandson or something to that effect. And like he was a descendant of her. He was not her brother. He was someone younger, which like it's a thing of like, I guess I didn't technically fall for the twist, but it wasn't like anything satisfying in a way of like, oh, I figured it out. I just kind of like stumbled upon a more correct answer because I didn't understand the ruse they were going for. Okay. To wrap up, I want to go over some of the absolutely amazing writing in this book because I absolutely love it. So let's go up. Don't die. You have this line right over here on the left. Although she had a desk in her mother's office, Honor had yet to use it. Being in such close proximity to her mother made her itch. The years of abuse hadn't faded. Like a scar, the marks remained, but it wasn't a scar, not really. It was a wound that masqueraded as a scar, and being near her mother made it bleed all the more. And I just love that as a line to describe the chronic nature of an abusive parent. I loved that. Also, Nayeli was just such a fun fucking character. That was such a fun character because she is one of the like best metal crafts workers on the islands, and because of that, she is like destined to be successful, and they want to marry her off, and she has a lot of suitors for marriage. And this is about like the suitors approaching her and whatnot. No, my son, he's tipped to be commune leader one day. He's the one who left you the papaya. The papaya had been sour. Ignore auntie, you should marry my friends Oppo and Lapo. Over Nayeli's soulless body would she marry a couple whose names rhymed. Like, Nayeli's funny as fuck, like just hilarious. I really do love her scenes. She's so fucking funny. This is a quote that I just thought was a good quote. You didn't ask the right questions. Remember this in the end when you know all. Like, that's just badass. That is just a badass fucking line. This is talking about John and his own obsessive following of a cult leader. You keep saying Loot told you nothing, that you didn't know he had yellow blood, and I'm starting to believe you. Why would Loot need to tell you anything? You're nothing but a dead man's weapon filled with a dead man's words. Just, the writing of this book is so good. This is such good writing, and I loved this book so much. Let me find some more writing. Some more writing. Do, do, do. This I loved as just a. This I think is like genuine. Take this to heart. It is this line here with little berries by it. We know the fox is coming. We know he hunts our kind, but look at our fields and what we leave behind. The monkey looked at the seeds the koi birds had sown and saw the abundance of food. Even the tree you climb was once planted by our forebears. So understand the sacrifice we make and why we do not fly away. And like that line, that just even bit of story of why you want to stay on the lands that you work hard to bring abundance to is just so amazing. And then the line immediately after, I could not be that monkey sitting high in the tree, not knowing who planted the seed, who sacrificed for my need. Just amazing. Just phenomenal. And you know, we can end on we can end on actually one of the a very funny line that got through editing because humans, what can you do? So you have this line again, climate disaster is happening everywhere. There are massive floods that are happening in the mainland, and the mainland has a monarchy alongside the university. And one of the lines is after a major storm is the queen and her family are presumed dead, our monarchy lost forever. I send this message with the last standing fighter in the queen's service. All surviving sea lords and earth lords must report to Zwina Academy. Counselors, the power of the land of Tino is now in your hands. The last missive from the hand of the queen. Which, you know, humans can only do so much. Basically, this is essentially like basically the reason why this is funny if is because the word missive might not be a super commonly known word. The last missive from the hand of the queen implies that this was the last statement written by the queen, and the first line of the last statement written by the queen is that the queen and her family are presumed dead. And I just, you know, it made me laugh. we love silly little typos, silly little writing mistakes, because people happen and it's a fun time. But yeah, I absolutely adored this book. I thought it was a great time. There were, you know, the sections that I didn't like, but I think they're like the writing, the plot, the story that we were given was just amazing. I am so excited to read book 3. I'm so excited to keep reading more by this author. I know that they are working on a Cleopatra book, which I am so incredibly excited for. I'm so incredibly excited for that whenever that comes out. But in terms of what I'm up to next, like I said at the beginning, we've got the Crips for eSims for Gaza bundle on Itchio, and I'm going to spend my next couple streams, pretty much every stream I do up through May 20th is going to be talking about showcasing stuff from there, and like just trying to promote that as much as I can until the sale is over. And then after that we will scoot to our regularly scheduled programming, primarily of our quarterly review. And frankly, at that point it's probably going to be June, and for Pride Month, not Queer Month, Pride Month, I'm probably going to try and read Anara, which is the queer Palestinian poetry collection, which that's exciting. Also very excited to check that out. But yeah, lots of exciting projects going on soon, lots of exciting things to be checking out, and I can't wait to engage with you all about them. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time, but until then, valedictions, friends.